What's up, people? The clock has struck tequila time. For those of you who don't already know, I used to do a series of periscopes where I'd drink tequila on camera and rant about stuff, and sometimes I'd have a guest on and we'd ask each other questions. Now, since Periscope's going down, and I do enjoy doing these tequila times, I decided to turn it into a podcast. And our first guest here is the perspicacious Pat Stedman.
Hey,
So
Ben.
Pat,
Good to be
yeah,
here. It's good to be here.
yeah, good to have you. So for those of you who, for those in the audience who don't already know who you are, can you introduce who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm a dating and relationship coach for men, and I help guys on, throughout the wide spectrum of issues relating to women, going from deep psychology all the way up through, energy work, and really, of course, also doing a lot of tactical things like how to approach women, how to attract them, how to bring more into your life, and how to keep them.
Yeah, yeah, the spiritual stuff you've gotten into, it's really interesting to me. Yeah, especially the 3D, 4D, 5D stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't want to get into too much of that here because I've seen some other podcasts you've been on, and I want to and you've been talking about that stuff nonstop. So I want to get into some other things here, some
Sure.
stuff that's relatable to more so the general population of men and to curious women, not
Well,
necessarily to.
Ben, first, this is tequila time. I need to know what tequila you're drinking. And
Oh, that.
you got to see
Oh,
what.
that's coming up. That's coming up.
All right.
Yeah, yeah. So, Pat, my first question for you is, what time is it?
Well, it sounds like it's tequila time. I'm not gonna say wine o'clock because I hate that. That's like a
Yeah, well, it's tequila
wine.
time in my time zone, 1 o'clock in your time zone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, second question is, what you drinking?
So I'll show you guys on the camera. So as you guys know, people who have watched my periscopes know that I've been doing, like a wine school of sorts, and have basically been going through Italy at the moment. I've done a couple different countries already: Portugal, Spain, etc. So I want to do something a little bit different from the current curriculum. And so what I got here are two GSMs. Now, GSMs are really known in the south of France. Really famous from Châteauneuf-du-Pape, which I wish I had. Châteauneuf-du-Pape is probably the biggest appellation in southern France, the biggest, like most prestigious one in southern France. And GSM is basically an abbreviation for three varietals that are blended together: Grenache, Syrah, and Mourvedre. And you see that a lot all throughout southern France. Now, a bunch of people, one of the Rhone Rangers, this is, I won't go too much into it, but this was a bunch of people who decided to try to bring Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre to California back in the 70s. They were called Rhone Rangers because they brought Rhone varietals over there. And so I have a GSM from one of those guys, which I haven't had before. I haven't had a Rhone Ranger in a long time. So I have a Prestige Côte de Rhone, which Côte de Rhone's not very prestigious. I didn't have a Châteauneuf. And I have this GSM from California. So we're looking at very similar things here. Both Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre. This one's 44% Grenache, 44% Syrah, 12% Mourvedre. And this one is 80-15-5. So this one's, the California one's more balanced, but I'm interested to see how they taste. So let me see.
And as for me, what I'm drinking is this Sauza right here. I don't know the history of it because, well, all I can say is I got this at the liquor store, and that's the history behind it. And I'm mixing this with this Pellegrino right here.
Ah,
Yeah.
I didn't know, sir. I thought you may be doing it on ice.
And always got to have the Pellegrino.
I love that.
It's part of the tequila time ritual. Like at the start of the periscopes, like you do your wine history talk. I do this is the tequila I'm drinking. This is the Pellegrino I'm mixing it with. Let's fucking go.
Let's fucking go.
Yeah, this is the tangerine and wild strawberry flavored Pellegrino. So It goes really well with tequila. Yeah, basically any Pellegrino goes really well with tequila. So that's why it's a combination I always do on these.
I love it, man. We'll have to do tequila sometime together. Although I'm more of a
Oh,
tequila
yeah.
shots kind of guy. But
Yeah, tequila shots. Yeah, tequila shots actually taste the best of any shots I've ever had because they don't have like that stingy alcohol taste to them. They're more sweet than that.
it's true. Although
Yeah,
sometimes they can really make you want to gag at the end of it. It really depends on what your state's in.
yeah. That's why bars serve them with those tiny lemon slices.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. But like personally, I'm a no chaser type of guy.
Okay.
Yeah, like when I've had people over to drink before, I've always told them this is a no chaser household. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, if I'm cool enough not to chase, you better not chase either, because chasing's for pussies.
You gotta have some stuff for the girls though.
Oh yeah, water. Because
Water.
you
Yep.
gotta stay hydrated.
Yep.
So anywho, cheers, man.
Cheers.
Yeah,
Cheers.
let's do a long distance glass clink. Clink.
Clink.
No, that was bad timing. Let's try it again. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Tink. So anywho, next question is, tell us about Cat Stedman. This one's for the cat enthusiasts in the audience, including me.
Oh my God, cat. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because like you're at your parents' place right now because of circumstances, but they have a cat, and I'm
No,
curious
no,
about
no.
that cat.
So
Let's
let
hear.
me set the record straight. So we're here about 2/3 of the time. We had ever since COVID, we moved down here, at first because the city was completely dead. And after that, we were splitting time between New York and the beach house in here. And now we're in New York for about a third of the week. A third of the month, I'd say. We were actually supposed to go down tomorrow, but once my wife was kind of towards the end of her pregnancy, we were here then full time for about a month and a half, 2 months, because you're not going to be able to do anything else anyway. Now the cat is actually my cat. It's not my parents' cat. My wife and I found this cat, Shepherd, in Houston, Texas, after we did a road trip around America. So you're on the way back, coming on the way back. Just got back from some barbecue in the city, and this little thing scurried up a telephone pole next to me. I thought it was like a rat at first, but I'm like, how is it up on the telephone pole? And there was this little kitten that was like a month old, and it was totally scrawny and sickly and everything, and wouldn't stop following me after that. And, kind of tried to get him away from the highway, went back to my aunt's house where we were staying. But then we were kind of thinking about it like that, we just got to check to make sure that kitten's okay. So we go back and we don't see him, and we're like, okay, well, that's good. Maybe he's with other, maybe he found some safe place. And then I go over towards close to where I found him, and he's sitting there by himself on this like electrical box next to this big highway. And I'm like, this cat's gonna die. If I don't take this cat's gonna die. So at this point, I hadn't started my business, and my wife wasn't working either. She had just come over here from Europe. And so we picked up the cat and nursed it back to health. It was a disaster. I mean, this cat was first we just were going to take it to actually the shelter. But then at the shelter, they kind of push it. They're like, oh, what's his name? Like, oh, we haven't named it. It's like, oh, where'd you find him? You found him on Shepherd, Avenue. Okay, well, we're going to call him, his name's Shepherd. We're like, okay, like, fuck. Now you're like naming the cat.
Yeah, if you name it, that means you got to keep it.
Yeah, it's like, fuck. And so we ended up, I want to help you guys understand this, the listeners. This cat had ringworm. This cat had stomach worms. And this cat had fleas. This cat was very sick. And when we were at our next stop, which was in New Orleans, we ended up staying in like one of the most disgusting parts of New Orleans. We're talking about an area. Guys in NOLA know Chef Montour. This area is like super skeezy, and our hotel was basically like a prostitute place. But that was actually a good thing, because you turn off the lights and you actually have like the blue light, that kind of goes on. You're like, it's like a crime scene. You can see all the stains everywhere. It's not very good. And there was a prostitute in the hotel room next door to us, like, holding up shop. But this cat had insane diarrhea, like was just because his stomach was all fucked up, and it's just shitting everywhere, dripping shit everywhere across this. So it was like it took about 3 months to really get that cat back to health. So he's very intelligent, he's very handsome, and he's very insane. He's mentally ill. It's a mentally ill cat.
Well, the best men in this world are all those things.
Yeah, well, exactly. He's definitely got some he's got some game, but he's got a lot
Yeah,
of issues. He certainly he is not a cat that you forget, let's put it that way. You might not
oh
like
yeah.
but he's very loving and then very violent, it's very
Oh yeah.
yeah. So anyway. So but he's been here full time because once we moved out, we used to take him down here all the time anyway. My parents were used to him. But cats like to have their environment and everything. And so when we go back, it's like my parents take care of him here.
Yeah, I heard someone say once that cats are all in 5D. And I found that to be true personally, because when I've been walking around the street, like feeling good, feeling high vibration, cats come to me. Like I sneak onto people's driveways, pet their cats. The cats can't get enough of it. But
Mm-hmm.
I remember this one time I was walking home and I was like really pissed, like in a really low vibration mood, like 180, 190. I tried doing my usual cat petting routine when I'd see a cat in someone's driveway or something, and the cat literally like dashed across the street to get away from me. And I was like, well, rude.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, cats definitely have some ability to see into other sort of dimensions and stuff. I think in a way that dogs don't.
Yeah,
Um
that's why I like cats so much, because dogs like everyone, but cats have discernment.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Cats are very picky. They're very
Yeah.
picky.
Yeah, like if a dog likes you, nothing special about that. Dogs like everyone. But if a cat likes you, you're special.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so anyway, next question. What are what have been the most rewarding and the most challenging parts of being a father so far?
Well, I've only been a father for 2 months. So, I guess we'll see a lot more down the road. The most rewarding was no doubt, um, when they look at you and they're smiling and they try to talk to you. That's been happening more recently. Um, I'm kind of actually going to just give like a splattering of it. I mean, when she was born, she had her little hand and she was grabbing my finger. It's very sweet. Um, and I think that our thing together is, I did that long hike back in September. I like walking a lot. I To the extent that I consume information, I consume information, but I do it mostly on walks. But I'll also, take off headphones and stuff and kind of listen to shit and just listen to the outside. It's a good place to think about things. It's a good place to meditate. But one of the ways that I can kind of take some time with Penelope, my daughter, and give my wife a break, because being a mother, especially in the early stages, the baby's just so dependent on her for so much. She needs to feed regularly. So I'll go on these walks and, 3 to 6 miles with her, and I'll have her in a little pack. I actually had her in a sling at first. I've moved on to a pack now that she's getting a little bit bigger. And that's like kind of our time together. So I guess I would say that those are sort of the more special moments, because she's kind of funny. She'll make all sorts of sounds, but sleep and stuff like that. The most difficult stuff has been really more recently, when she's been, I don't know at this point if you could say that she has colic or not. But this last week she's been pretty rough. She's just been really crying a lot, and you can tell that she's in pain. And it's tough to see her like that. It's like it's tough to see something and not really know how to solve it. You know, we kind of covered all of our bases, especially as a guy, knowing that, you know, I can only do so much. You really have to, you know, my wife has a little bit of a better touch with it. You know, she's got the breasts as well, which help. but but yeah, it's very interesting experience. It's very interesting. And, you know, when you have a baby that has this sort of very colicky stuff, which only will last another month or two, you know, worst case scenario, it's very trying. It's very trying. Like, I'm thinking to myself how blessed I am because I have a good, well-paying job that's flexible, and my wife has full maternity leave, and my parents have been gone this week, but generally we have my parents around too. And I can see now with my mother not around just how big of an impact it was to have the grandmother there to help take care of things. Like just the amount of extra work that was added onto the plate. So I have a ton of empathy for people who have children who have autism or children who have all sorts of, just because I can't imagine how difficult it is, especially if your job requires you to be like, you know, clock in, clock out 40, 50 hours a week, both parents. It's got to be brutal. So I feel very lucky to have that help under the circumstances.
And I'm not a father myself, but I do have two younger
As far as you
siblings. Huh? Pardon?
know. As far as you know.
Well, gotta be prepared for anything, eh? Yeah, no, I'm not a father myself, but I do have two younger siblings, and it's a 12-year age difference.
Mhm.
So I've gone to like, you know, see firsthand how a little kid grows up, and let me tell you, it gets worse. It's gonna get worse, Pat. Gonna get a whole lot worse.
Well,
Like,
you know, I just want to say, like, I don't think it's bad. It's just different.
yeah,
No, it's
yeah. I mean, like,
work, but the rewards are really profound. And I think I understand what you're saying, and it's funny.
yeah. I mean, it's all about love, but the work's gonna get a little tougher.
Yeah.
Yeah, like first few years it was all right. They were cute little angels, and then they start getting selfish. They start throwing tantrums when things don't go their way.
Mm-hmm.
But the good news is that stops. And these last couple of years, like I've had like the best times ever with my younger siblings because they've gotten a little older, they've gotten a little more responsible, just a little, and they've gotten a lot easier to deal with. And I can have intelligent conversations with them, teach them about the world, and being a big brother is very rewarding, but I know it's probably different than being a father. So when I'm eventually a father myself, I can't wait to see how that compares to being a big brother.
Well, I've been an uncle for a while, and I think being a big brother, especially with that kind of age gap, is in some ways like being an uncle, maybe closer to being an uncle than a father. It really depends on the family dynamic. I mean, I know some big brothers, some big sisters have acted effectively like parents. And I know that my sisters, I have the same kind of age gap, but in reverse. My two sisters are 12 and 14 years older than me. So I was like their practice, and they were very helpful. And I think it's actually really good when you have those kind of age gaps, because even though you maybe don't really connect with them until they hit late teens, but you know, you get a lot of experience with being able to understand, okay, what it's like to take care of a kid, right? What sort of the cycle is. And so you feel more prepared when you do become a parent. I had that to a lesser extent because my sisters each have 3 children. And one of my sisters lives very close by, very close with her family. And I know all those kids, basically. All, like, I mean, so, but the thing about being an uncle is like you can peace out, you know?
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
actually,
it's no like 24/7 commitment
yeah,
to
reputation to
to
like
not
rile
just
them up
yourself,
and
but to a
exactly,
very small person.
exactly.
Yeah. Just a part-time job, not a full-time one.
That's right. And actually, a lot of your job can sometimes be to just, you know, rile them up and
Yeah.
mess around, and then,
Yeah, just be the cool, fun uncle, which I really hope I am.
yep.
Yeah. So about your job as a dating coach, what are the hardest obstacles you've had to overcome in your journey as a dating coach, both externally and personally?
Well, I think that the coolest but also most difficult part about being a coach in some metric is that you need to do everything. You can only really teach as much as you've done, right?
Yeah.
So the most difficult part of being a coach, I mean, I feel like when it comes to like a material standpoint, everything that they were things I was going to go through anyway. And so coaching is a way for me to alchemize it into value for other people. And of course, a return for myself. But, difficult things. I mean, probably the most difficult time was before I was a coach in my early 20s when I had just absolutely no idea what I was doing with women. And I had extreme amounts of anxiety and having to work through that anxiety and really put myself out there. That was extremely formative. I would also say the second part, I talked about that in my master class, is, when my wife and I were sort of on the verge of our relationship was just not going to make it. It's not going to make it. I mean, it needed to evolve, and it did evolve, but we were really hit at crossroads. And I guess you could say that that was a pretty tough period. Although I have to say that in many ways that was an easy period compared to before. I think when it comes to growth and improvement, the hardest thing is actually when you haven't been ready to make a different choice. I think you have a lot of people who are so afraid and they have so many kind of problems and their life sucks. But it's not really until you say, well, maybe I'm going to get help, maybe I'm going to change how I operate. Then that creates a separate path. Now maybe it's scary to walk down that path, but for the first time ever, you actually have a different choice, a different option. And so I think that actually really, I don't mean just theoretically, because theoretically you could always leave or whatever, but actually saying like, you know what, I've emotionally decided that I don't want to be in this dynamic anymore. That was tough to make the decision, but then once it happened, it created things a lot easier because then you could surrender. And I think that that's really the big thing, is being able to surrender and really feeling like I can jump into the unknown and be okay. And I think I've really mastered that skill at this point. I mean, you know, based on recent events, I've been better and better at being able to just trust that things are going to work out and not have to feel afraid of it. I think really fear is the worst possible thing that a person can have on their journey.
Yeah, I mean, personally, in my journey in dating, fear has been probably the biggest thing I've had to overcome because I've self-sabotaged with a lot of girls. I've self-sabotaged in other parts of my life, not because I was scared I was going to fail, but because I was scared I was going to succeed. And
Mm.
then somehow those girls or other people were going to find out I was innately unlovable, innately someone who just sucks. And it was really like it's been really transformative for me to realize that that fear is not doing anything for me, and that I'd rather be hurt than wonder what could have been. Because
Mm-hmm.
looking back, like anytime I've been rejected by a girl or a potential friend, I'm I'm not resentful, I'm not pissed off, I'm not regretful about any of those times, but it's the times where I could have done something and I didn't that I keep looking back on. Like, I wish I would have done that differently.
Yeah, I feel you with that.
Yeah, so you talking about your wife there, it ties into another question I was going to ask you, which is, what's something your wife has taught you that no other woman has?
She's taught me that I need to get my shit together if I'm going to reach my full potential.
Yeah, because That's the type of woman who's really gonna ultimately make you a better man. Like you see these red pill larpers on Twitter where they're like, I just want a girl who shuts up and cooks and cleans and follows me and does whatever I say, and that's really just an unrealistic fantasy. Yeah, if you really want to grow as a man, you need to like find a woman who's gonna show you parts of yourself you didn't know existed.
I mean, it's an unrealistic fantasy for sure for them, because what they want is they want someone who is going to validate their fantasy of themselves. And so the woman has to be a fantasy in order to validate their own self-image. And so they want her to do all these things because it makes them feel like a man. And if they can't get that, then they'll continue to be anonymous on Twitter. I have nothing wrong with anonymity. I think anonymity is smart in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
I'm just pointing out that
Yeah,
a
it's
lot
got
of
its place.
I'm just pointing out that a lot of people who say the most dogmatic and I'm a fucking alpha people, they don't put their face out there. I mean, I got all sorts of stupid comments from people over the years like, what do you think about Andrew Tate? What do you think? Andrew Tate is a very different person than me, but I respect Andrew. Andrew's authentic, and Andrew puts his entire life out there. People can see he's not a fucking LARPer. So you have this stuff that's like people like a lot of people pretend to be Andrew Tate, but they won't ever show their face, right? And this is what's hilarious to me. It's hilarious to me because if you're gonna do that stuff, you better have the goods to back it up. Andrew can back it up. A lot of these guys, where's your proof of backing it up? You know, you can say all this shit. So they want that stuff, but
Yeah, they don't have the energy that's gonna draw it to them.
Yeah, and the reality is that you can get that stuff in a different manner as well, but it will come from a position of the fact that, you know, the woman herself wants to do it because you guys have a very healthy relationship and dynamic. It's not doing it for your validation. And the way these guys craft their material, it's obvious that this is about their ego. This is about their self-image. And if they can't get that, look, it's really, I'm not trying to diss people who pick up girls. I've done this stuff. It's a skill, and most guys don't have the ability to do it. But there is a really, really different, like big difference between being able to go out and pick up a girl and sleep with her and have her do nice things with you for a couple of months while you're not committed to her versus having that sort of idyllic dynamic years later in a committed relationship, especially when you have kids. It's a different level of skill. And what happens is that you can create an image of yourself early on, and you use the fantasy of yourself that you've created. That's seduction, right? You use the fantasy of yourself.
Persona versus personality.
Exactly. You use that persona in order to get what you want. And then when the persona starts to crack or she wants more, then you cut it off. That's actually not that difficult. I did that shit like 8 years ago. You know, it's like I did that multiple times. I mean, it's part of the journey. I'm not dissing it. I'm just saying that those guys will then go and make comments about relationships and how, oh, you know, it's pathetic stuff. It's like, actually, what I see when I see that is I see somebody who's too afraid to go to the next level. They don't want to challenge themselves further. They don't want to grow further into a man. The guys that I admire are guys who are committed to women, and they have families, right? And they have incredible romantic relationships, because that's a level of skill that's much higher than being able to seduce a girl into, you know, loving your fantasy. It's very different.
Yeah. Yeah, in my experience, like I've never felt like myself going purely on fantasy. Like I've understood it intellectually, but every time like I'd actually be talking with a girl, like giving her that fantasy, I just bow out of it
Mm-hmm.
because like I said before, it was that fear of her finding out who I really was beneath the
Yeah.
fantasy.
Yep.
And
Yep.
yeah, one analogy I use for this is like a movie trailer versus a movie. Like you're taking a girl to see a movie, your genuine self. But first, to make her want to see the movie, you gotta show her the trailer. which is
Yeah.
your persona, the image you put up, the fantasy you want to give her. And we all know how frustrating it is when the actual movie is nothing like the trailer. So imagine how a girl feels when she's talking to a guy who's giving her this fantasy. Then she finds out he's actually nothing like the fantasy. She's disappointed.
Ben, I love that analogy. It's really perfect. I mean, Persona really is the trailer, and a trailer can be authentic to the movie, or it can be bullshit. And you know,
Yeah.
you can see the movie and you can be like, that was a really good trailer.
Yeah. Plus,
Or
you don't want to spoil too much of the plot in the trailer, or else the
ex-
girl's going to lose interest.
very well said, very well
Yeah.
said.
Mystery's the greatest aphrodisiac.
And then you have some trailers where you're like, that was the entire movie, right? There's
Yeah.
nothing, there's nothing really there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like those guys who are like, yeah, I'm all about the gym. And the girl's like, well, what else are you about? And the guy's like, well, gym, muscles. Or the
Yeah.
guys who are like, yeah, I work a really good job and I have a nice little paycheck. And the girl's like, what else is cool about you? And the guy's like, that's it. I'm just a guy who works and gets a paycheck.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's all about the layers. It's all about the
Yeah.
layers. I think,
Yeah,
the
it's all
book
about being a dynamic man.
is all about being a dynamic man. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So kind of going off this, like,
Hmm.
what do you find modern people don't tend to understand about masculinity and femininity? Now, I'm going to answer this question first because I have a lot to say about this, but I find that people tend to be very polarized about what a man should be, what a woman should be, and what I mean by this is that people tend to either go all in on modern values, which are like, there's no real difference between men and women. Attraction, it's all about your personality and the stuff you have in common. While there's other people who think it's just about the biological differences, the traditional stuff, like the man has to go out and work, the woman has to stay home, cook, clean, take care of the kids. Men have to be strong, stoic, not show emotion. Women are all emotional and subservient. But what I find that all these people miss is that you should integrate both traditional sexuality and modern evolved sexuality to your understanding of it. Like yeah, you should be strong, responsible, a breadwinner as a man, but at the same time, you should show your emotions, you should lift up the people around you, you should take care of the people closest to you and not try to be some emotionally repressed tough guy, which is a trap too many guys fall into. And for women, like personally, I got no issue with career women. I know like some red pill alpha larpers out there are like, if she has a career, that means she's a low quality woman. Never date her. Like I don't agree with that because historically women have always worked, and I know personally my mom's a career woman and a mother, so I know firsthand that it's possible for a woman to be pleasant to be around and have that career path. So what do you think?
Well, I mean, uh, I think the big question is the people who say these things, are they idiots or are they just traumatized? Trauma makes you stupider because you can't see a lot of things.
Yep, trauma makes you stupider. Let's put that on a t-shirt.
Honestly, it is a really good slogan because trauma does make you stupider because when you're traumatized, you can't see things. I mean, functionally stupid.
Yeah,
You could have very
because your
high
brain's
IQ.
in survival mode. It's
Yeah,
it's
my
push it's
cat
putting
is
all its energy into pure survival and not necessarily into its growth.
Yeah, my cat is, for instance, very intelligent, but he's an idiot in the sense that he's so traumatized he loses the bigger picture. Whereas somebody who maybe isn't high IQ but isn't very traumatized will be very wise and profound because they'll understand the deeper truths in things. So, I guess maybe you could say that some of Nassim Taleb's stuff about intellectual yet idiot is connected to this sort of idea. But yeah, the fundamental thing is that you have a lot of guys who I don't know whether it's that they can't really see deeper or that they're so afraid of what could be deeper that they don't want to see it. But a lot of things that they want are like 3D dynamics in relationships. They don't want 5D. And and that's actually the biggest reason that my work and my things have been misunderstood, because people don't, if you're at a different level of consciousness, you probably won't understand my work. I don't mean that as like an insult. It's just a statement of fact. People who are at a certain level of consciousness understand exactly what I'm saying, or at least are interested enough to want to understand what I'm saying. They understand that there's something to it. But people who are at a low level in their relationships, they are really grabbing on to the hardcore red pill dogma that if I don't do this stuff, I'm dead when it comes to women. I'm fucked. And so, and the reality is that, I mean, you would be like that if you were around bad women, right? Like I was talking about this today, Dread Game, etc. Dread Game has a place, perhaps, but really its place is mostly in the 3D, especially active dread. Any sort of like active thing, I'm going to make this girl jealous. I'm going to make her feel like, I'm going to go talk to other girls and these girls are going to be interested in me and I'm going to make my girl jealous. Like, why are you at that point in your relationship where that's the way that you need to do these things? Now, I understand maybe you're at that point and there may be a role to do some shock treatment. I'm not saying that there isn't a place for these certain tactics. I just want it to be understood that stuff is pretty extreme and is not a recipe for, like, I would only use it to say, hey, oh, you didn't like this? Right? Like, oh, now you're worried about things in the relationship. You want to try to work for it. Well, maybe we shouldn't have this kind of relationship dynamic, right? Like, wake up. But if you're doing it, it's like, yeah, I'm going to keep making her feel like I'm going to leave. Well, that'll only work for so long anyway, because eventually she'll take any opportunity she can get to cheat on you. And it becomes a very nasty dynamic. Now, remind me, Ben, what was the specific question when it came to mass? Because I want to make sure I'm specific with this.
Yeah, so the specific question is, what do modern people tend not to understand about masculinity and femininity?
Yeah. So one thing I want to talk about when it comes to masculinity is that, and I'm going to talk about it specifically from the standpoint of women. I kind of want to answer this invertedly, because I think that we can understand in many ways what masculinity is by how the opposite sex responds to it.
Yeah, that's very true.
So the big thing that is not understood about masculinity is that masculinity is a triggering force. So when you have trigger warning on things, and when you have stuff that's basically telling you, and this goes up to the macro, right, that, I don't want to offend anybody. Look, I don't try to offend people, but that's a diplomatic way of saying things. I'm not going to withhold the truth. I'll try to frame the truth and try to
sort of truth cuts sharply.
Yeah, it does. I mean, basically, I'm going to make the incision. I'm just trying to make it as clean as possible. But the cut has to happen, right? The cut's
going to heal.
The cut's, yeah. And I think, frankly, I was seeing that video today. I don't know his name. I forget his name. But, he was basically telling this guy, oh, you're a fat fuck. Why are you trying to get women?
Saw that one.
Yeah. It's like,
it's a very, like, unrefined version of masculinity.
Yeah. But he is giving that guy the gift of masculinity, which he obviously doesn't have, right? That guy obviously didn't have it. Now, it's a very abrasive way of giving it to him, but it is triggering force. I mean, you could have said the same thing. You could have said it a little bit differently, but the fundamental point is that, yeah, you are a fat fuck. All that stuff is true. You are a fat fuck. And you guys got to see this video if you're going to understand this. I'll just give a very quick context with it. Basically, guy was calling in saying, I think women should approach me. I shouldn't approach women. And then the guy goes and grills him on it, and he finds out that, this guy is making less than 1K a month. I mean, he's like literally poverty line kind of stuff. 1K per month, less than 800 per month, I think. And is, 5'10" and 280 pounds, so really overweight. And, the guy's like, do you have a big dick? Well, I mean, to be be fair, that person, maybe he does have a big dick. If he's above average and he's 280 pounds at 5'10", maybe he does, because you've lost about a third of your dick in that fat.
Yeah, I mean, if you can see it, it's ought to be pretty big.
Yeah, if you can see it and it can do some work, then it's not so bad, right? But the reality is that this guy calls in and the guy just chews him out like, you're a fat fuck, you know, and I would never say that to a client. I never say that to a guy. I think it creates a lot of trauma by saying it, but
because
it's the truth. It is the truth. And you got to tell him, like, look, you are not in a level that you're going to get women to approach you. Your pre-selection is non-existent. It's non-existent pre-selection, literally. To expect a girl to approach you like that is insane. It really is insane. So, I mean, but that is masculinity. Masculinity is giving the truth at all costs. That's it. On a distilled level, the masculine aligns people. It's love. On a high level, the masculinity does it out of love, but it's like, yeah, you're broken here and you need to get better. So the feminine says, I love you as you are. And I think that what men don't understand about femininity is that there is, and I think it's difficult to make this point because we do live in such a feminized world, but there is a really important place for compassion and you know, understanding of people. And I don't think that you need to be cruel to people. I don't think you need to like really beat them over the head. I think there's a way to do it well in order to get them to improve. But the you know, a woman, feminine energy is really a healing force. It's really healing. And I think if the masculine is not integrated enough, you will see an inevitable movement towards the feminine. You see a lot of families that the father is a very abrasive kind of masculinity. And very often, not always, but very often, what happens is that the boy will move towards the mother because the mother will heal him in a certain sense. And so I think it's important, you know, your bone's broken. How traumatic, you know, I think that.
Yeah, you got to both set it and
Yeah.
put it in the cast. You can't just do one or the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's like setting it.
That's a good way to put it.
Like, I had a broken wrist once, and setting it, it was really painful. Like, briefly painful, but really painful. And then, yeah, wore a cast for about a month and a half, got that taken off, and yeah, we could compare the cast to the feminine, the setting to the masculine. The masculine,
you should treat that.
It can be painful, but it's for the greater good. And the cast, it's feminine. It's that supportive, healing force over time.
Yeah, no, that is really good. You should tweet that out because that is like exactly on point, and you do need both of those things. And I think a lot of guys, it's like, okay, I broke you, and now you got to walk. It's like, not maybe you need to, you know.
Yeah, no, you gotta be gentle about it.
Yep.
You know, break someone gently enough that they can easily recover.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not so much that they're in a hospital bed for a month.
Yep. Yeah. The masculine, when it's out of position, can actually, in an attempt to fix something broken, it makes it more broken.
Yeah, that's like an immature masculinity. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would 100% agree. Or
yeah, because like
the
immature masculine, it's all about you have to be bigger, stronger, more fuckable than the other guys. While the mature masculine, it channels that savagery, that potency into making the world a better place, into lifting other people up, building society, keeping weaker people safe from harm. And yeah, some guys think the immature, low consciousness parts of masculinity are all it takes, like the alpha red pill larpers. They think, okay, I lift weights and girls want to sleep with me. That makes me a man. And then there's the patriarchal guys who are like, I have a wife and kids. That's what makes me a man. And then there's career men who are like, I have a career or I'm moving forward in this life pursuit, and that's what defines me as a man. And they're all correct. Those are all expressions of masculinity.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep, depends on the layer in the facet, but yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it's like immature femininity. It's all about getting attention from men, manipulating social situations to your advantage through your beauty and your sex appeal, while the mature feminine, like the mature masculine, it's also about raising the people around you.
Yeah, there's more of a unification at the top, and I understand that people get really cautious about these kind of conversations because the reality is that if you haven't done the foundational work, you try to become a 5D man
Yeah,
versus, or try to become a 5D woman if you're a woman. What ends up happening is that you don't actually become it. You get trapped and you skip steps. And so, for instance, when I was giving my 22 convention speech in Orlando this past fall, there was a lot of, I was talking about a lot of masculine feminine integration. And there were some women, most of the women understood actually what I was talking about and they appreciated it. But there were some women that had a really hard time with it. And you could tell that, they were still in their masculine. They were too afraid to surrender more and back into their feminine again. Because the reality is that as you move up the integration pathway, like the two parts do get close together. And sort of
yeah,
what happens at the
because they're
top.
uniting towards the same goal. While at the lower ends of consciousness, you have two separate sexual strategies.
Correct. Correct. And at the top, I mean, you will become more feminine at the top if you're a woman, and you'll become more masculine as a man at the top because you feel more in alignment in that energy.
Yeah,
You're not in that energy because you have to do it, because if you don't do it, then. But you see this, like a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, I'm getting in touch with my feminine side or whatever," and it's mostly bullshit. They mostly do this stuff. That's why, I feel so
yeah,
difficult
it's
talking about
avoidance.
these things. Yeah, it's difficult talking about these things because people on our team, Ben, are gonna be like, "Well, what the fuck are you talking about? You're sounding like those hippie people," and I'm like, "Yeah, a lot of these hippie people are full of shit." But the concept is not incorrect. It's just that a lot of those guys in those spirituality communities need to really hit the gym. They need to go and do things that are going to challenge themselves because they're trying to get in touch with their feminine, but get in touch with your masculine first and then get in touch with your feminine a little bit, because your emotions, expressing your emotions once you've grounded yourself in your strength, is different than grounding yourself in your emotions before that. In the same way with women, grounding yourself in your strength before you've allowed yourself to surrender your emotions, to surrender to somebody, surrender to love, well, now you just have a defense mechanism. All this, I'm a strong woman. No, you're not. You're a fragile woman. And you're clinging on to this stuff. It's bullshit. But
Yeah, yeah, it's like building a three-story house. Like you can't build the third story without first building the first two.
yeah.
Like otherwise you're just gonna have like some random third story lying on the ground. There's not even a door to get in. You're gonna have to use a window. It's a pretty shitty house overall. So we gotta start with the first floor. Like
Yep.
the first floor is all the biochemical, primal stuff. Like again, like being strong and able to attract women if you're a man, being pretty and able to attract men if you're a woman. Then the second floor, that's all the social stuff. Excuse me. It's like having a career if you're a man, or like having, I don't know, a good position in society if you're a woman. And then third story, it's all the personality 5D stuff. But I feel like we've said enough about that. So before we end this nice little chat, I got one more question for you. And this is a more down to earth one, but I'm sure everyone in the audience is going to find it relatable. What are some tips you have for dating during this situation? You don't need me to tell you what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
from COVID, all this stuff, all the
yeah,
lockdowns, etc. I mean, look, the reality, I hate to say this, I hate to say it, the reality is that things are a lot more fucked up and it's difficult to do this stuff. It is really difficult to do this stuff. I mean, I know that somebody wants to create a marketing angle, and, I've been very open about different tactics throughout the process, and I can talk about some stuff, but the reality is that, especially in the winter, especially in northern parts of the world, I mean, there really isn't much you can do. Let's be honest here. There really isn't much you can do. I mean, you can go online, you can pick up girls online. Is the girl going to want to actually meet up, or is she going to want to,
Like,
do a bunch of FaceTimes before she does that? I mean, it really depends on the girl. But a lot of them, the ones who are online, want you to want to do the FaceTime stuff first, and that's okay, maybe okay once, but the reality is that's
yeah,
a
I've
shitty
yeah, I've
environment.
never been a fan of that. Like, I understand that some people, there's a place for that with their lives. Like maybe they're really busy and they don't have the time to like get ready for a date with someone, so it's easier for them to do a bit of vetting over the phone. But that's just never appealed to me personally.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to build your social circle, well, good luck because everything's shut down. You need to
Yeah,
go to vectors to build up your social circle. So, I'm not trying to be pessimistic because I feel like it's going to end in the spring. I think we're going to be good, but I think that right now where we're at in February 2021, we are in probably the deepest lull of the last year.
yeah,
These
I
things.
feel that too. Like the energy's been more stagnant than it's been since like March or April or May.
Yeah, at least then there was some excitement.
Yeah, yeah. Plus, like the sun was out, so you could go out, you could sunbathe, you could go to parks and stuff. Like personally, I used to go for hikes every day when everything was shut down. But now that I'd have to deal with the Canadian winter if I want to go out, like I don't go out every day, but I do have the occasional walk or run. Yeah, and overall, like I'm making the most of this. I'm doing a ton of inner work because what else is there to do? And that's what I recommend for other people. Like right now is probably the best time you're gonna have in your lifetime to detach from everything, not worry about missing out on anything, and just go within yourself and figure yourself out.
Yep, 300%.
Yeah, so is there anything else you want to say about that?
About that, no, I would say that the Côte de Rome is surprisingly the better of the two.
Oh yeah.
Wasn't expecting that, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I personally had almost half this thing and I still feel sober, so what was the point? Yeah, but yeah, probably in like 5, 10 minutes, all the drinks are gonna hit me at once and I'll be like, whoa.
That's the gains tolerance, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and speaking of gains, y- I know we said this was gonna be the last question, but speaking of gains, how do you find fitness ties into spirituality?
I think it's important to have your body sorted out with this stuff.
Yeah,
I think it's really important to have your body because your body is a foundation. It really grounds everything. It really grounds everything. If your body's out of whack, it becomes much harder to attain higher levels of spirit. I mean, if ever you're having a bad day physically, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, it's hard to feel like high vibration. So your body is a temple, and if you don't take care of your body, you're not going to get the higher levels. Now, if you over exaggerate your body, people can do that to.
yeah, like stuck in 3D.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like I said with the three-story house. You got to have the first story before you build the next two.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the way I see it is that the body and the spirit, they have a symbiotic relationship. The body shapes the spirit, and the spirit shapes the body.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, Pat, it was awesome having you here.
Yep. It was great being here, Ben. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So have an awesome day, man.
Yep.
I'll
You
talk to
too.
you later.
I'll see you, brother.
Peace.